I myself, as a domestic worker in New York, was faced with the unknown. What I knew was that we were excluded from the National Labor Relations Act, and we had little or no power. And I joined Domestic Workers United, an organization here in New York. It had newly started. It started back in 2000 to do it. So I did the course at Hunter College with Domestic Workers United. They had a very good Asian Studies program at Hunter College at the time, and I got the certificate. But along the way, what I learned wasn't only from a pediatrician coming in, from the American Heart Association coming in, from OSHA coming in, but what I learned was what Domestic Workers United was teaching at the time, and that is one of the things that stuck with me, was the reason that we were stuck in the position that we were in as domestic workers was the exclusions in the industry. And if people employ us, well-meaning people, employ us and they love us and they love the work we do, there was no guidelines for them to set wages, time off, pay sick time. There was nothing for domestic workers formally on the books in this country. And with that, after joining Domestic Workers United, I stayed after the training, and I was very, very passionate about the political side of the training. And this is how and where I got my real activism, because I knew that things needed to change. At the organization, we were having so many people coming in with the same story of the hardships that they were going through. And I remember one Saturday getting on a bus and going up to Southampton because one of our workers got injured in the basement of the house where she was working and had a cast on her foot, and the employer said she couldn't go home. She had to stay there because she had no person to stay with the child. She was running a very upscale restaurant up there. So at that time, a Malaysian domestic worker, Justina, she said, I can't stay. I can't stay, it's too difficult. She can't get down the stairs and up the stairs from the basement, back up and down. She couldn't do it. And she was a middle-aged woman. She wasn't like a young person. And the employer refused to pay her. She didn't pay her for the week that she was there. She just said, well, you can go. And it was so aggravating. We organized a whole busload of people. We couldn't get a bus full of domestic workers, but we had allies, sympathizers with us, and we went to Southampton and we protested in front of that restaurant. Jobs with Justice at the time, Simon Greer and those guys were the head of Jobs for Justice here in New York, and they partnered with us and they went, and because they were white or high brown, what you call it, they could go into the restaurant and sit down and pretend that they were customers, and then phone us and say, come. So we came and we made a whole lot of noise in front of that restaurant, and in the end, the story was she finally paid Justina for her services. And I stayed with the organization, and because of some of those outcomes, we decided that we were going to ask the workers to come in, and we were going to fight for a domestic workers' bill of rights for New York. And it took us 6 years. 6 years because we had to tell the ministers in Albany what a domestic worker was. Because when we went and we said domestic workers and we can't negotiate for ourselves because there's no law, they said domestic abuse, domestic violence. No, domestics, people who work in other people's homes. And we had some ministers that were, some senators, some assemblymen that were sympathetic, and some who employ workers that couldn't care less. But it took us 6 years and we passed the Domestic Workers Bill of Rights in New York. And out of that advocacy work, we came together, and during that time, in trying to get the Domestic Workers Bill of Rights in New York, we formed the National Domestic Workers Alliance. And I today am one of the organizers at the National Domestic Workers Alliance.